What's up, family? So we're gonna talk about Trump today. Welcome back to another video. So we're gonna dive into some incredible news that every American should be paying attention to. President Trump has secured a new trade deal with China, and it's a major win for America. This isn't just about a minor adjustment. We're talking about a significant reaction in tariffs that's going to put America back into the driver's seat on a global stage. Now, let's break it down for a little bit. I want to preface the conversation before we actually get into this clip shown on the screen. So, under this new deal, tariffs on Chinese goods are being slashed from a whopping 145% down to 130%. That means American businesses and consumers are going to feel some serious relief when it comes to the cost of imports. So, ladies out there who are shopping, especially me being born and raised in the black community, out there shopping for their wigs and they front pieces, they so they could do the little baby hair swoop in the front styling. You know what I'm talking about. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But what I mean is the cost of those goods, importing those wigs and weaves and pieces of hair from China, uh, you'll have some relief there. They won't be as expensive as it was for the time being temporarily. And it's not just about lowering tariffs. This deal sets the stage for future negotiations that could continue to level the playing field and protect American industries from being undercut by unfair Chinese trade practices. Now that I have got that out the way, let's check out the clip, family.
Global stock markets are soaring thanks to President Trump's latest trade truce with China, and the world's two largest economic superpowers have agreed to slash tariffs by 115%. That means there's still some in there, but they're much lower, and it's for a 90-day period. So, Wall Street, the corner of Wall and Broad, liking the cooling off that they see. The deal cuts reciprocal tariffs, again, by 115%. And China will reduce pressure on U.S. products from 125% down to 10%. The U.S. will temporarily lower tariffs on Chinese goods from 145 to 30%. So you see, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent revealed that this breakthrough was able to happen under President Trump because China walked all over Biden.
In January 2020, President Trump produced a template. We had an excellent trade agreement with China, and the Biden administration chose not to enforce it. The Chinese delegation basically told us that once President Biden came into office, they just ignored their obligations.
And now that President Trump was able to make major progress with China, he's eyeing an agreement with the European Union next. But warns those talks will be tougher.
In all parts of the European Union, they were the toughest of all. They were nasty. And I see that. I see that with trade, too. European Union is in many ways nastier than China. We've just started with them. Oh, they'll come down a lot. You watch. We have all the cards. They treated us very unfairly.
All the cards, David.
Yeah. I watched the European Union debate. It was a few days ago on the tariffs. And you could see the setup already. And President Trump is right. There are so many moving parts in Europe, and it's either full-on anti-Trump or they can't preserve their socialism. The other thing they face in Europe is that Germany is breaking away a little bit from this. You see the shifts in Germany, and they're sick of being basically the economic lapdog for the other countries. So they're not as aligned as they'd like to be, but there are a lot of people that are just living in that TDS world. And I saw that in the debates. I watched a couple of hours of it and realized that this is what we're up against. But China proves one thing, that when you stop playing games with them and pay attention to their weakness, China is not as strong as they'd like to be. They're our biggest trade deficit. But the fact is that they're weak because if their goods sit there and they're an export economy,
right,
they're not selling to maintain their communism.
So, Kennedy, can you talk to us about really what this means in a broader sense with the European Union? They don't have a singular dollar over there. You've still got the British. You have a lot of people on the continent who do things differently financially.
Yes.
How much does all that matter?
Well, it does matter because the European Union came into existence to compete with America on the global stage, hoping to be, the third leg in a hegemonic triad. And that has not necessarily been the case because there have, for the last couple decades, been several countries in the EU that have really dragged their economy down, and they've tried to restructure their debt over the years. And I don't blame Germany. I mean, Bavaria wants to secede from Germany because they're prosperous, and you have other parts of the country that, the social safety net is acting like an anvil. So they're doing whatever they can, but I'm sorry, like the free market and appealing to consumers is the best way to go instead of creating a system of dependency that is unsustainable in any country, in any language.
Emily.
Yeah, I looked at not through the lens of an economist by any means, but just as an American, as I've been told that under the prior administration, our obligations were ignored. And I can't skip over that because the idea and the concept of an abdication of duty is something that somehow the left pushed a narrative for us that it was somehow tolerable. And they reframe President Trump's actions as somehow that of a self-serving dictator, when the opposite is true. He is finally, for once, fighting for the American people and America as an actual global superpower, or simply as just mighty and independent, rather than being totally trod upon by all of these countries like China, where the capitulations and policies of the prior administration and Democrats like it are what got us into that cheap, fast, casual, tariffs imbalance, high debt mess in the first place. So bravo. And just remember that the narrative will never let this be a joy or a success. They will continue painting this in poor light. And that, lo and behold, they said China would never come around, right? It was going to be World War III. Well, look what happened.
Well, it's like Kayleigh always says, deliverables. I mean, Trump is coming forth with them. That's got to really hurt the left. I want to stick with the European Union for just a second, though, because a lot of things are really, really pricey over there. And Kennedy mentioned that there are 2 or 3 economies within the union that are not viable, and they're having to shore each other up and all of that. That makes them weak against someone on the global stage like Trump, who wants to now, as a president, do a deal with tariffs.
For sure. And of course, they don't have the United Kingdom there anymore either. I'm still sitting here so impressed that you watched a few hours of a European Union debate on tariffs. Whoa, David Webb.
I'm that guy.
You are that guy.
You're the one.
Let me just say, it's a huge win. And Scott Bessent has kind of been teasing this all along, saying when you're the surplus country, I mean, China's running a trade surplus. They have more to lose than us as the trade deficit country, and that appears to be right. This is a major breakthrough. 3 a.m. Eastern time is when Scott Bessent was announcing this on the world stage. He also talked about this helps to bring on critical supplies, and I couldn't help but think of my time in the White House in 2020 when Obama left the cupboards bare, as Trump kept saying, with N95 respirators and all the COVID supplies we needed. They've put an eye towards shoring that supply line up. And Scott Bessent should be praised. President Trump said, maybe we bring these tariffs to 80%, but I leave it up to Scott B. Well done, Scott B. This is a big breakthrough.
All right, family. So now that we heard that, and sorry, I'm always open to the possibility of being wrong. I want to correct myself. It went from 145% down to 30%. And basically, when Trump raised the tariffs to 145% on Chinese products during the trade war, that means if a Chinese item normally costs $100, right, American businesses had to pay 145 more in taxes just to bring it in, making it really expensive. But now he cut the cost down to 30% as part of the 90-day pause, because this is just a 90-day pause. And I believe and I also support Trump in being smart and seeing how China operates, because we all know that us, the United States of America, us Americans, we are the hub, we are the market, which China used as leverage to make them rich in the first place, because we have all of the consumers, majority of the consumers, to even make them be wealthy in the first place. That's why they can't be self-reliant without us in the first place. But I do support the trial period, because China gets funny, and China is for China, and America is being for America right now. So we got to give them a test trial to make sure their behavior stays in check. So I do support Trump on that. But part of the 9-day pause, like I said, in China, it's not back to normal, but 30% is still high, but it's much lower than 145%. And like I said, the prices on imported stuff could drop a bit. Business could have some relief, but there's still uncertainty depending on China's actions. And the 30%, right? So if the product normally costs $100 with a 30% tariff, you have to pay 30% more in taxes just to import it. So the math would be 100, which is the original cost. Then you got the $30, the 30% tariff, which would be $130. So instead of paying $145, back to my example, you'll be paying $130 for the same product under the new 30% tariff. Um, Look, it's not extreme as it was. It's not extreme as it was when 145% tariff was imposed. But let's not forget, this isn't the first time President Trump has taken bold action on trade. Back in January 2020, he secured a historic trade agreement with China that was designed to hold them accountable for their trade abuses. But what happened? The Biden administration came in and essentially let China off the hook, allowing them to walk all over us without consequence. But now Trump is back in the negotiating room and he ain't playing games. He's holding China accountable again, reminding them that America isn't going to be their economic doormat anymore. And this isn't about China. This isn't just about China. Trump is also setting his sights on the European Union. He's warned though that those negotiations might even be tougher, like he said, but you know what? That's exactly the kind of strength we need right now. Because let's face it, for years, the European Union had treated America unfairly when it comes to trade, leveraging tariffs to keep their economies afloat while making it harder for American products to compete overseas. But Trump is making it clear. And think of it like this. I'll give you a real life example to keep it very simple, right? Um, think of it like a friendship where you're always the one paying for dinner while your friend just keep taking advantage of your generosity. At some point, you got to stand up and say, hey, this ain't fair, bruh. Like, let's split the bill. And that's what Trump is doing with these trade deals. He's making sure America isn't the only ones picking up, isn't the one always picking up the tab, I should say. And we're putting America first, which means we're going to stand up for ourselves and make sure we get fair deals instead of just going along, being a go along, get along gang with whatever other countries want. And we're using our power and influence to get better agreements that benefit American workers and businesses. Imagine you being on a one-sided relationship, right? I'm gonna give you another example. You're in a one-sided relationship where you keep lending money to a friend and they never pay you back. When you finally confront them and demand they pay up, some people might say you're being too harsh, but the reality is that friend been taking advantage of your kindness, and it's time to set boundaries, right? So that's exactly what Trump is doing with China. He's holding them accountable and making sure they don't keep taking advantage of America's generosity. But the reality is, this tough approach is the only reason these deals are happening. Trump isn't afraid to stand up to other countries and tell them to stop taking advantage of America. China wants you to believe they're unstoppable, but they actually need us more than we need them. They're struggling to sell their products and keep their economy strong, so they're more desperate for a trade deal than we are. And it also brings my question to you guys as I'm thinking further in this and speaking on this. Should we have always had a businessman as president? Because I believe so, because then we can look at it and we have to operate this country from a business perspective. Because if we didn't have a businessman in office in the first place, will we even be having these efficient, effective trade deals to put American first in the first place? Trump has been the only transparent and the pro-American, put American first president in my lifetime that I have ever seen. Comment down below if it's the same for you or not. As always, we're here to have a conversation. So, look, and Trump is using that since China is struggling to sell their products and keep their economy strong. Trump is using that to get a better deal for Americans. But let's be real. The only reason these deals are happening is because he's willing to stand up and call out these other countries for their unfair practices. China isn't as strong as they want you to believe, and they're dealing with a massive trade deficit, and they know they need us more than we need them. That's leverage, and Trump is using that to get the best deal possible for the American people. So picture this, right? You're in a relationship where you're always the one doing all the work and spending all the money, while your significant other just coasts along without contributing. After a while, you decide to stand up for yourself and set some ground rules. Suddenly, you have more money in your pocket, and the relationship is more um, operated for the best, more operated effectively and efficiently. So both of you thrive and have more money in your pockets equally, and then you both could be the beneficiary of each other's greatness because you have more money as a tool to do more things as in advancing in a relationship or let alone individually so you guys thrive and be the beneficiary off of each other's success. So suddenly you decide to stand up for yourself and set the ground rules. That's what this trade deal is doing for America. It's putting us in a position where we're not just giving and giving without getting anything in return. And it means more money in our pockets, more jobs for American workers, and a stronger economy overall. It means the stuff you buy from China, like electronics, clothes, and toys, can start costing less because of lower tariffs. It also means American businesses will have a fair shot at competing against cheap foreign products, which could lead to more jobs and better wages here at home in the US. And overall, it makes America stronger because we're not dependent on other countries to supply us with everything, and we're making our stuff right here, right now, which is better for our economy in America. And it means lower prices on imported goods, more opportunities for American manufacturers, and a stronger, more self reliant economy. This is how we keep America great, by putting our interests first and refusing to let foreign powers take advantage of us. Now, I want you guys to see Scott Jennings on CNN, on the CNN panel that they usually have. Um, as always, he's always up for a fight, and he's always fighting every single time he gets on these panels to defend common sense. So I want you guys to see how Scott Jennings on CNN had to school these liberals on the trade war and America being a big player in this whole trade war deficit.
Scott Bessent today under oath said we're currently negotiating with 16 of the 17 most important countries, and he'll be meeting with the Chinese this weekend when they all converge in Switzerland. I think dealing with, with all due respect to all these other countries making deals, they're small and relatively unimportant. We're the big player in the field, and everybody knows it, and people would rather do business with us than do business with China because of what Jim just said. They have all these strategies to inflict pain upon you if you don't bend to their will or allow them to break the rules. And so I think when you're dealing with the United States, it's going to take a little bit of time to work out the best deal for us and the best deal for them. But I have a lot of confidence that when push comes to shove and people get right down to it, an alliance, a trading partnership, business dealings with the United States is a heck of a lot better than being reliant on the Chinese because they have seen what they have done to us and everybody else in the world. The decoupling and the isolation of China is a real thing, and, it may be a little painful, but it's necessary. Most significant country.
No,
we are the
Scott,
world's
stop with the
superpower.
jingoism.
We are the world's
let me
superpower.
stop with the jingoism.
Dealing with us is the most important thing.
Stop. Do you think that China can do just as well with the EU? Do you think that China can do just as well with India?
If I were the EU, I would not want to be reliant. And look what's happened to us. They don't want it.
It's not a question of reliance. It's a question on the fact that everybody is cutting deals with each other. We're not cutting deals with anybody.
We have one thing in the news tonight.
No.
You guys keep saying
they're having discussions with each other.
We're in the middle of talking to 16 countries, according to the Treasury Secretary.
According to the Treasury Secretary, we've been hearing from them for over a month that we're on the cusp any day now. Any day.
Lying?
No, I'm saying that I've been
He's
hearing.
under oath today.
I'm saying that every deal that we heard about is coming any day now.
How quickly would you be able to cut a trade deal?
I wouldn't. No, let me answer that question. I wouldn't get into this mess in the first place.
I think that's a very good.
You wouldn't try to improve our trading relationship.
I would not get into this.
Good to know.
No, Scott, let me tell you something. Kentucky, my friend, you guys import more than any other state in the nation. You want to represent that state in the Senate? You go tell the people of Kentucky why they have to sit there and listen to this nonsense. Their bourbon's about to be tariffed to hell. You guys are about to have no trade with Canada. You're about to lose millions upon tens of millions of dollars just in Ontario province alone with all the stuff that you're not importing there. So why don't you go tell the people of Kentucky?
We have a lot more ahead on the Canada piece of this.
Than you do. I can tell you, they trust the president.
Oh, okay.
They voted for the president, and they're going to let him make the best deals for them.
Yep. And my thing is, what do we really need from China to survive? What do we really need from China? People keep going on their Temu. They keep going on Shein. All these they get these cheap clothes that don't even last, that actually wear and tear just so you can buy more, and they keep making you rely on the rat race of buying things from China. So that's why China has been becoming wealthy in the first place, and we make better products and better quality clothes and stuff in America anyway. But the thing is, I feel as though she's fear-mongering, and it's also slapping her face because China has been making negotiations, actually speaking with President Trump all along anyway in the first place, even though China made it like they weren't speaking with the U.S. and speaking with President Trump to make a trade deal. They was at the table the whole time. They just made it that way because they were trying to tug on the heartstrings of the American people, like Trump is being the one that's being difficult and don't want to make a deal and Americans going to suffer. And they were hoping that the American people went against Donald Trump and trying to gain the sentiment of the people so they can have leverage by spreading a falsehood narrative rather than actually making a deal with America and President Trump where things are equal or things are more balanced and level the playing field so we can compete and America can also get their return on investment and stop being taken advantage of. So, I mean, I think it explains more of Trump getting gifted a free plane, an Air Force One plane in Qatar. He's going to fly out to, and to me, it seems like everybody is flocking back to America to do business. So you're worrying about a deal, and let's be very objective for what she said to Scott Jennings, right? The lady in the green here on the screen. If supposedly nobody wanted to cut a deal with America, right? Or let's say they keep talking about cut a deal, cut a deal, cut a deal, right? And we're not making no deals. Well, if you're fear mongering and making as though we need a deal to rely on these other countries, then why would these other countries be so focused on bashing America, when they've been benefiting off the first place? So my point is, wouldn't these other countries be self-reliant on themselves in the first place, where we wouldn't even need deals or negotiations in the first place? If that was that deep, if it was what she's saying is true about nobody's cutting the deal with America, nobody's worrying about cutting the deal, everybody else is cutting deals, then why were they dealing with America in the first place? Why was China befriending us to then, let's say, for example, make a cheaper product and stealing what we know, for example, like AI, and trying to make a cheaper version of AI to compete with us to become wealthy if they're so better off without us and they don't need a deal, is my point, right? Doesn't make no darn sense. So at the end of the day, there goes that, family. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you think about this new deal? Is Trump making the right move, or do you think there's still more work to be done? Let's talk about it. And as always, make sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates on how Trump is fighting to keep America first. Um, I am not for Trump. I am not a Republican. I'm just pro-American, and I'm just giving the game and giving the knowledge. So we also understand how this affects our children, because it's bigger than us. It's for the next generation to come. And it's also amazing to see how Trump can make a deal that would take 20 years to do with any other president, and he done in like 3 or 4 months. And he just hit his 100 days in office. Well, with no further ado, family, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, got some value from it. Give this video a big thumbs up. And I know, family, peace.